Who'd you talk to? What's going on? It is me, Mike Leopard, King Michael. This is Legit Paranormal, brought to you by legitpodcast.com. It is September 3rd, 2023. So for the math geeks, let's go 9 divided by 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Divided by 2 is another 3. I'm going to go double threes on it. So usually joining me as always is Buddy Money there. But Buddy is camping. I think he tried to bring his Commodore 64 with him with the floppy disk in tow. But so far no good. So joining me next is Sin Schrader Hill, author. How are you, Sin?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm having a rip roaring time. In place of Buddy, I'm drinking a cheap Miller High Life. Why? It's champagne of beer.
Well,
And the dogs like it. Now, really quick, Sin. Buddy is camping, which brings me to this really fast. Now, I'm very sorry that there's been one reported death. I get that. I apologize for that. I'm sorry for that. But in general, have you seen what Mother Nature did to the Burning Man?
no, I heard there was an issue,
Oh, she put it
shall we
out.
say?
She put it out. Like she rained on that thing where it. So first off, it's mud, like
So,
deep mud, right? There's no dirt, no sand, right? And all the tents and the displays that was supposed to look like before time, or futuristic or whatever, that whole like Road Warrior look. Now they really do, but it's not what they were going for. So I feel bad that someone died in the whole thing, the whole rain, all that with the gut. But in general, it's kind of funny that like Burning Man, it goes off every year, just gets rained on to the point where it's a mud. Nothing is
somebody
burning.
somebody put out that flame.
That's what I'm saying. It's just unbelievable. It's comedic gold. Like I've been trying to like not make jokes about it all day because it's just, the whole juxtapose. So usually Buddy does his intros. Okay. No, Buddy's not here. So I am not going to attempt to do the long intro that Buddy would do. What I will say is this is someone that's been recommended to us as far as just be someone who can read cards, someone that is very in tuned with the paranormal world. There's all those different terms for it. I just like to say that this is someone that's come highly recommended to us as far as someone being like that. She was going to appear with us for the last show to do the cards. Tori McNally. Am I right with the pronunciation of the name, Tori?
Yep, you're right. You're fine with that. Yes.
There I go. Okay, now how would you describe yourself? Because you'll do it better.
So I kind of am a little bit of a jack of all trades. I'm a tarot reader and medium. I'm a physical medium. I also do coaching, one-on-one classes, and so on. I have a small psychic studio and healing art studio in Wickford, Rhode Island. And I actually have worked with Newport Ghost Tours for a number of years and was also working and doing different investigations of some of the buildings that were there on the tour. So I definitely have a foot in the paranormal world, and I definitely have a foot in the I guess you could say metaphysical world with a lot of the different traveling that I've done, especially to Egypt and so on. So
jack of all trades, involved within the paranormal. Sin, I don't know how much you know about Newport, Rhode Island,
I
but
don't.
it's mansion after mansion of creepiness in certain areas, right? The thing I always tell people about Newport, Rhode Island, because I've coached basketball for like over 10, whatever. We know how old I am. Anyways, Newport, Rhode Island is beautiful, and then oh boy, it's not. Like it's one of my top 3 Rhode Island cities that are like, hey, and then no, it gets little. No, it gets a little rough.
Depending on the area.
Tori, am I wrong? There's mansions.
There is a seedy underbelly of Newport. I will never forget I guess there is somewhat of a high population of homeless and drug use. And I remember ending the tour one night in the middle of the Queen Anne Square over by the church, and all of a sudden this guy passing out, and there I am in my black nightmare outfit, as I like to call it, the Victorian outfit with the lantern. I'm sure the guy must have thought he had died. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And depending on how you talked, he didn't know where he was. Like whatever you said to him next probably would have dictated where he thought he ended up.
Yeah. He didn't want help, I'll tell you.
So no. See, Newport got history amongst the mansions. It's crazy, right? It's one of those places in Rhode Island that's like, go to Block Island, you got to go to Newport, and in my book, you got to go to Federal Hill. Those are like my 3 in Rhode Island. You got to do. Now, if you want to get crazy, you can go to Lincoln, Smithfield, get some pizza. If you want to deal with a bunch of Guidos, you can go to North Province where I live, or Johnston. No, I'm being serious. Guidos are like, they drive Mustang. A little bit too much.
I'm with you.
Speaking a little bit too much. Buddy, money. Hey, let's see how much.
Oh my God, what's happening? Let me hold on. Let me take a quick walk. I'm gonna get up. We're about to eat, so I don't want to interrupt dinner, but I wanted to come on and say hi.
Yep.
Hi. So here we go. Right. I'm in McGalloway Plantation, lovely Maine. Right, as a campsite. That's dinner. That's mac and cheese. Right. Here we go. Right.
Yeah.
Look at that, right? Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh shit. That's what I'm looking at. Look at that, huh? Mountains.
So,
lake.
buddy, can I ask you this? So what do you do? What do you do? You like drink beers and stare at the sun?
Mike, I've drank about 15 beers in about 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
And I do a lot of fishing and a lot of lake time and drinking. Yeah, I brought
Stare at the sun.
playing cards and all that fun stuff and swimming and
how many who's
women?
feeding you? Who's feeding you lines?
Wine?
Lines. I can hear somebody in the background going swimming, and you're going swimming.
Okay. So this is John.
Hi,
This is John Shea.
John.
Okay. Please hold. That's John. And the man behind the furnace is Costas. How you doing?
Hello.
We're doing good here up in McGalloway, Maine. I hope you guys have a wonderful show. I'm gonna go and eat and drink a lot of beer and get hammered, and I'm coming home tomorrow. So I'll see you guys Thursday from Rhode Island. And that's about it.
Have a wonderful time. You are in my favorite state.
Thank you for showing up and taking the intelligence level of this podcast up
to the next level, dude. Next level. It's all about the next level this weekend. All right, guys. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Watch out for lead.
Peace.
All right.
That's lovely, Daddy.
What? Wait. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's the train that is Buddy. It just
It's all good. It's all good.
It just goes. What I was saying was, so Newport has some incredible mansions. When you did the touring of Newport, the question I would have is, what was your favorite? Because like even in Block Island, there's parts of that tour that like are my favorite. So like, not only just your favorite history wise, which is probably where you and Buddy share that connection because he's a huge history buff, but just you personally doing the tour, like what was your favorite spot?
So the tour actually was more in historical Newport, which was much more colonial. So it didn't really deal with what was on Bellevue Avenue. I mean, I've been through the different mansions and I've definitely felt the energies and so on. And realistically, the guides are not allowed to talk about anything that goes on in the mansions.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All of the what is it? The family. No, I can't think of the name of the family. It's drawing a mental blank here. Everybody died happy, even though one went down in the Lusitania and all sorts of nightmare stuff that has happened in terms of curses. But so everything that we dealt with on the tour was primarily colonial, in actually colonial downtown Newport with the British basically taking over Newport for a couple of years, and the Hessians, and then the French coming in, and so on. So one of the places that I think is definitely the most haunted on the tour is probably one of the most haunted in the state. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or not. It's the Artillery Company, Newport on Clark Street. They are a collection, museum collection of all war artifacts.
There you go.
Inside a granite building. And I mean, I've seen way too many things. We've seen things in the windows. We've heard whistling. I had gotten pretty friendly with some of the guys who are part of the group, and there's just way too much stuff that goes on in there. You'd smell cigar smoke. No one's smoking. You would feel cold spots and all sorts of stuff. So that
we're talking whistling, like cat calling whistling, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No,
just
not
whistling
cat calling.
in general.
Yeah. Because I mean, they've had people in the Artillery Company Newport from French and Indian War. It started like in the 1700s, actually. So they have artifacts from French and Indian War all the way up to present day. And everything is broken out according to different wars and different venues, I guess you could say, like Pacific and Europe and so on. So there's a lot of stuff, and you know, that's certainly a great haunt in terms of things being attached to items.
So a lot of Native American, and then a lot of rich white people type stuff. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm trying to speak like way back. I mean, the mansions, for crap's sakes. So it's rich white people stuff. At least that's how the Italians always saw it. We had Federal Hill, and you went to Newport for the beach. But like those mansions themselves are based. I remember every elementary school toured the Newport mansions at least once or twice. Like that was like a Rhode Island. You had to do it.
Yeah.
Like your class was going on a trip to Newport. And for the kids, it was never that much fun because it's like, we don't want to learn history. Like no, it means there's no one did. You're a kid. You're like, oh, well, what can I go play on? I can't touch this. I can't touch that. I can't touch. It was like tough. But as I got older, you know, obviously appreciate it. Now, you guys don't pull the whole Plymouth Rock BS, do you?
No.
You know what they do on Plymouth Rock? You ever been to Plymouth?
Oh, yeah.
When they act like they've never heard of a cell phone, or they'll say ridiculous stuff like that, like when they're dressed in the pilgrims' outfits. Have you ever had that conversation, Tori?
Oh, no. Oh, God, no.
You just never been? You never talked to them?
I mean, I've been, but we never did that on tour.
No, good, because that drove us nuts. They would act like they were from the era, Sin. Like they'd be like, what's this? It's like, come on, guy. You know what I mean? We're in Plymouth, Mass. Play with it. So you guys couldn't tell them anything that was bad that happened there. So then, ghost-wise, was it more history?
It was a lot of history. We also would do special tours for Salve Regina around Halloween. So we would get access to the campus, which is right in the heart of the different mansions there on Bellevue Avenue. And so the stories that we would hear and that we would dig up were definitely interesting. And definitely a lot of activity, because many times I'd have divining rods on tour with me, and the kids would be able to ask questions and things like that. So it was quite interesting. And not to mention, there were also a lot of, I'm going to say, stupid kid things that they did over the years, opening things up. And I think you understand the direction I'm going in, where they've opened some really gnarly portals there, to the point where priests will run out of the room allegedly and never come back and quit and good stuff like that. So,
see, so this is where that thing blends again. So I've been fighting on this show forever. See, this not really fighting, because I don't. At the end of the day, what do I care? I mean, like I care, but you know my point. I keep saying it's good and evil, good and evil, good and evil, right? Whenever I talk to people in this paranormal podcast, over how many years we've been doing it, whenever I say a demon, if I use the term demon, and you know this, I get pushback right away because they think I'm speaking religious.
Right.
Like I can't say good and bad. I say a demon, or that might not be a little kid's voice. I don't believe in little kids being trapped in places they died. I don't think the universe would allow that. That's just my theory. I always think when I hear a kid's voice or something like that, that might be evil. So don't go near that. Now, Buddy fights me all the time, claims, you're exaggerating. Blah, blah. But I really think that all day long, it's a battle of good and evil. I think inside everyone's head. I think in general, in the population, I think that's the one major thing that's constantly going on. Sorry, does that make any sense?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there definitely is a battle of good and evil, and I think there's different levels of it. But I also think that sometimes there is energy that's completely misunderstood by a lot of people, and I also feel that there are times people do consciously play with things that maybe they shouldn't play with.
Agreed.
They're just not equipped, basically. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, like you bring beer spray if you're going to go around with these beers, right? Some people jump into this and sin. I always say this: they jump into it without thinking there's any repercussions. They're looking for the good time, the adrenaline rush. I mean, I was like, aren't you worried that you're letting stuff in? Like, aren't you worried every time you drop your guard, you're letting something negative with the positive? Because I'm a 50-50 guy. I think things split. Sin, what do you think of that, though? You think like a lot of teams right now are going in thinking, nothing's gonna bother me, and then just...
I think the younger ones definitely, yeah. Some of the ones that have just formed, yeah, because they're wanting to do what happened on the TV show that they just saw.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Tori, your thoughts on that?
I definitely agree with that. I have friends who have definitely said, "Oh, that's so cool that you do. I want to go out there and do what, and check everything out." And then I hear that they've had some really awful experiences that they have not been able to necessarily come back from 100%. So you get what you ask for. You might not like it.
You don't know what you're getting. That's the thing. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. I know I was working with some different people, homes, things like that, and I had a whole string of cases that definitely seemed to have a negative kind of feel to it. And it seemed like it felt like the same energy kind of running through it because it also happened to be in the same area. So it was one of those things where there was so much going on as we were going into the likes of COVID. I know I wound up having to take a step back from a lot of stuff at that time, simply because I had a mother in a stepmother in hospice and a husband with some medical issues, and they attack your weakest link.
Yeah.
Bang. I always say that, and it's like a test when you're being like when shit slides down, it just keeps sliding. That's a weird way of saying it. I'm just saying.
But it's true.
And right around the whole COVID time was possibly, between the COVID and the election, was probably the biggest release of negative energy from everybody that I know. Maybe ever. I fought with so many people that would tell me who I voted for and what side I was on. And I had I was so proud that I had an equal amount of people that hated me from both sides because I never said anything. And because I wouldn't say something, or I would just comment on something that's obvious, they would take that as I chose sides. And I get like a string of those blue dots in your message board thing. It's just like, calm down. Like there was so much negative energy around that time. It was a creepy feel. And I'll be honest with that. Like the lack of trust between people, just the weirdness, the vibe of being near somebody, like
the complete isolation.
Wouldn't that feed into the whole negative, because it's in my head, it's just a battle for energy, right?
Yeah.
So doesn't that feed?
Yeah, absolutely. I know when we were going into some of these different places, I mean, I just had to say, no, now is not the time. And also, I've been also doing physical mediumship table tipping since 2009 and facilitating it since 2012. And we actually did get some interesting information before all of this COVID stuff hit the fan. It was definitely described as a major event that was coming, that there would be a lot of people leaving the planet.
Wait. That came to you energy wise as
Yeah, with
Yeah,
the
but
text. Yeah.
premonition.
Seance, right?
Seance. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we do is we work with a lot of different ascended masters, in particular, and there was a lot of information coming forward with that. So our thought was that it was going to be some type of major, earth-changing kind of experience, not necessarily world plague.
Right.
No, I think if it said world plague flat out loud, you would have been pretty freaked out by that alone. Because that's so. What freaked me out though was, for the record, right around February of, I don't know when it broke. I really don't know when it broke because it's weird. My son was playing JV basketball and he had a friend visit, like literally, I think China, and he came back to North Providence and everybody on the team got sick. They all went down, like they all had pneumonia, and then I got sick and I got pneumonia from it. So I feel like I got hit with it before they even named it, because I actually went to a doctor and they couldn't even see me. Like nobody would come out and see me, but they did an X-ray of me, and they told me that it looked like spider webs were in my lungs of like whatever, and they said that's exactly what it is. So we think you have it. Just take this and stay home. That's literally how that started for me. It was, and then check this out. I went to the CDC website, but me being the me, I looked in the job section, and there was a job posted in November of the previous year that was it was like some sort of disease containment unit. It was for 18 cities, and they were hiring 30, 40 people per city.
Wow.
That's not a joke. I screen saved it. They were already, like in November of the previous year, they were already like within the CDC posting for jobs in this whole new disease prevention unit.
My family got whatever this was between Thanksgiving and Christmas before 2020.
Yeah,
so right when you're talking about, that's when we got hit. I was sick for 3 weeks. Couldn't do,
This was November when we got this information.
That's what I'm figuring.
So yeah.
So just that, people being sick, people being scared, which, all right. So Buddy's got the Barnum Armory. That's who he's at. I've been there. I actually got to wear one of the Civil War suits for a short movie we filmed. But like, I've learned that it seems like if there's great pain or extreme fear, like a battlefield type atmosphere, that holds something. Like, I can't explain it. It's like if you could picture like a really weird extreme moment happening, it's like you embed it. You're embedded within that. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. That's kind of parallel to the artillery company Newport. You have a building full of artifacts that has a lot of energy attached to them, emotional energy. People may have been killed in a helmet that's there, or wearing that uniform. And you have this repository of all this stuff in a granite building, which is basically like batteries in the middle of Narragansett Bay.
Yep.
It's like the perfect storm. And I do feel like that's when there is the possibility of something that might be a little bit on the darker side that looks for those places because they can feed off of it and be left alone.
Right.
I agree. Sin, question.
Can we move to Egypt? I want to know about. I do. Can we move?
You can move. You want to move?
I have a question about this.
Right now, Jonathan David, we're about to discuss Sin's want to go to Egypt.
I do.
Okay. So, Tori,
Jonathan David, come with us to Egypt.
All right off the jump, I don't think I'd want to go to Egypt because all I'm picturing is sand and heat and sand. And
I thought you were going to say the curse of King Tut or something.
No. I don't mind curses. I mind, like, I won't go camping because I won't sleep on the ground. I cannot.
Yeah, I won't either. No, the way I camp is hotel.
So I know that it's not like this in Egypt. I know it's much better than what I'm thinking, but I'm just picturing old cartoon sand sand, and sin. Go ahead, Tori. How was the trip?
Tell us
So
about Egypt.
I've actually been twice. I went in October, November of 2022 in the middle of COVID. And then I also went in January of this year. This year we went to Egypt, and then we also did a side trip to Jordan, to Petra. And it was actually a special access tour dedicated to different spiritual energies and different modalities and things like that. So we had a lot of really cool special access tours, like for example, up inside the Great Pyramid. We spent time up there doing a big meditation. Up there in the Great Pyramid is a big sarcophagus. We all took turns climbing into it. Cool stuff like that. Yeah. Interestingly enough, Napoleon got completely freaked out in the Great Pyramid, and I know Aleister Crowley's wife was also a little bit freaked out in there too. This past time we went to the Step Pyramid, called Saqqara, and we were in some of these underground tunnels that they've just recently opened, and we could actually see movement at the very base of the tunnels that they hadn't fully, I guess you could say, approved for visitors to actually be down there other than the working staff. So we definitely had a lot of great opportunities that people would not get. I mean, I had the opportunity of hanging out kind of in between the paws of the Sphinx, and sitting there in the portals. So I do a lot of work with Sekhmet, who is the lioness goddess of destruction, but also healing. So I channel her. There's also a Sekhem Reiki, which I do and work with people on, and I also work on certifying people for that as well, and bringing that energy here to the United States. So we spent 7 nights on the Nile, hopping on and off the boat, going to all the different temples and checking out the different stargates and places like that. I know I freaked out the Egyptologist that's now a good friend of mine, because I'd be describing things that I had absolutely no idea of. And he would be accurate. He'd basically be saying, that was what they actually had there. And that's what actually did happen there, and so on. So I was a little bit of a unicorn when it comes to being there. And they would kind of watch me in terms of what I was picking up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything creepy happen?
In Egypt? I would hope.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so.
Creepy. Like I said, seeing the movement at the very far end of the corridor was kind of interesting.
Yes.
It was kind of creepy, but in the same token, it was kind of fascinating because it looked like somebody that was dressed up more like a priest, kind of looking and kind of peering around the corner because you could see a long white gown. A lot of those different temples and tombs have activity. It's pretty amazing in terms of everything that's there. I had private access to King Tut. Yeah. So
I'm humming the song in my head.
Yeah.
Wait. So I'm trying to picture this group. So it's like a group of different religions or beliefs, or like, is that what it is? Like an all-star group of everybody who thinks something different?
So basically, the first time I went, it was basically billed as a chakra group, just to kind of help explore and expand and tune into your chakras. And this time around, there were more energy workers on this particular tour. But the plan is with down the road, I'm thinking maybe down in 2025, the opportunities of actually leading some groups myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that'd be a fun thing to do. Lead a group into Egypt. Another question. No, I'm being serious. Like I wouldn't do it, but it would be definitely cool to hear someone say, "Yeah, I led a group into Egypt," and that's a great story. So you have the lion goddess that you channel.
Mm-hmm.
Do we pick who channels through us, or who we want to connect with, or who we do end up connecting with?
I tend to feel that they kind of find us. They kind of make their presence known in terms of who they want to work with. I have a statue of her. I'll show you what she looks like. So this is her. This is one representation of her.
Dope.
And on the I guess you could say campus of Karnak Temple, there's a small little chapel, and there's this giant statue of her that is there. It's usually locked up with not access to it. Again, it was a special access, but I've been channeling her, and I've actually been doing the red light seance readings to the point where people are able to see some of the different physicalities changing on my face.
Red light, like
Red
IR?
light, yeah, red light, like the channeling where you're using the red light is part of the whole spiritualist movement stuff. You're using the red light to be able to see more of like almost like the ectoplasm and the facial features change on the medium's face and so on. So but yeah, I remember sitting in there and the first time, and this guy and this kid came in, and I know everybody in the group because he was basically wandering around while we were in the middle of trying to do a meditation. And I just remember that people were saying that my face completely changed. And I remember the guard all of a sudden backing away from the door and them shutting the door as soon as they got the guy out. But she was not happy he was there because she felt that as a intrusion with what she was trying to focus on.
She doesn't like hecklers.
What was that?
She doesn't like hecklers, basically.
Yeah,
Pay
no,
attention if
she
you're gonna
has an
be-
agenda, and she's focused. She, like I said, is a destruction goddess. Red light used for it. I did not use the red light. Obviously, I didn't have it there, but it's just a way of being able to see the physical changes on the medium's face easier. Ultimately.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to feel that question.
No, that's fine. But
No, that's
also, you're okay with your face changing.
Yeah.
Right there. That's a red flag for me. Like, so I
mean,
don't know.
that's what they do.
No,
That's
I
what they
know.
do when they're
I
in
don't know if I
seances
would
and
want
stuff.
that. I don't
I've
think I
seen
would want
Mark's face change so many times; it's ridiculous. And some of them are scary. Some of them are scary.
Yeah, some of them can be scary, and you know when I'm doing it, I'm kind of only doing it where I feel obviously safe, with a team that's really anchoring the energy on this side and the other side, gatekeepers, and I'm kind of pulling myself to one side, and then allowing. Generally, it's like ascended masters or specific, deities that I work with, like Sekhmet, to be able to step forward and to provide the different messages, or in this case with the Sekhem healing, she's actually hopping in and driving the bus in terms of actually doing the healing session.
So, you just use the word deities, which means multiple gods. You deal with multiple gods. So, in the whole landscape of gods, right? There's Roman gods, Egyptian gods. Are they all individual gods? Are a lot of them the same ones? We're just using different names.
I think that's an excellent question, and I think that there is a lineage. The likes of Isis, the likes of Mother Mary, is energetically very similar. I feel like you really can kind of trace that through. Even when in Egypt, I was channeling Mother Mary when we were going to some of the Coptic churches too and getting messages and recording them. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where I do feel like it's an energy source. I think that they kind of called it different things. Especially, I mean, in Egypt, you had the Romans and the Greeks that were also there a little bit later on in the dynastic periods. But it's the same energy, ultimately.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I find it. I always found it hard that there's so many different gods. there's just a lot of gods. It's like really because like the term God to me is up here,
Yeah.
but then they're all gods. So were they more like man, what's the word I'm trying to use here? Almost like a preacher, but like with superpowers. Like, is that what we think of when we think of like other gods that existed?
I think to some degree, possibly, but also on the other flip side, I think you have a lot of different cultures that also have individual kind of localized gods or goddesses, or
Mm-hmm.
I know throughout the Isles of the UK, they have these little individual gods that are in all the different wells. And they work and associate with them. Certainly with the Druids, that's one of the things that they were working with originally, before they went to the likes of Bridget and so on, and then things kind of grew and changed. And you also got to remember that not all of these cultures were writing their stuff down.
No.
And who was writing the stuff down sometimes could have been writing it down as a way of kind of taking the narrative into their own hands.
Oh, without a doubt. Because my thought is, if you're a god of a well, man, that's got to stink. You had chances of being like a god of like I don't know something like what you just said, war and healing for God's sake. Well, anyways,
but water was considered vital. I
but of a
feel
well, like they don't ever have parades or feasts, or I've never heard any songs about gods.
But there is for Bridget. There is for Bridget.
I'm gonna start figuring out gods of wells, and I'm gonna make a song and just call it Gods of Wells because that sounds like a death metal band. Sin, but you know what I mean by like by calling it Gods of Wells, it's almost like we're stretching the word gods. But I get it. Yeah. If it was prayed to, there's that. But Sin, do you understand what I'm saying by like watering down gods in the sense of like it's in a well?
No pun intended.
Right. Yeah. Right. But when you say God of the well, did they like offer or have offerings to this God of the wells for plentiful water and things like that?
Yeah, so and healings for the ability of healing. So yeah,
yeah.
You know,
so you're just down more superstition.
Yeah. So wait. So gods of wells, right? That this is a tough one right now. It's stuck in my head. They were praying because they wanted water to come from said well.
Mm-hmm.
For
healing properties.
All right, for healing properties. But does that mean there was one god for that well? Doesn't it seem like you don't hire a general manager for like a little tiny satellite store that's going to be smaller? Like, I feel like you're paying the god too much money to just work at a well. I know that makes no sense to anyone but me. But my point is, it's
your hierarchy.
Yeah,
it's your hierarchy you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you've got God like you're talking about, Mike, and then you've got all these demigods, and then you've got underneath there you've got supervisors, and then you've got another level, and then down at the bottom you might have the God of the wells.
You do
each well, and there might be what
a couple
thousands.
Yeah,
thousands.
I mean everything has a vibration, and everything has some type of spirit. It's basically.
But does that make them God?
But
does that make them a god? Like, did you know what I'm trying to say? Like, we use the word heroes way too much. Everybody's a hero. Oh, whatever they do for their job, they're a hero. And then the gods thing is, there's just so many gods. It's like,
it's all perspective.
No, I know it is. But listen, if you can channel something, it was there. It did stuff. It had some sort of godlike abilities. So like, if I'm a Dungeons and Dragons guy and I'm trying to restart the list, I'm already screwed up with the word paranormal anyways, from cryptids to ghosts to UFOs to like all this other stuff. When it comes to gods, I can't keep like, Tori, work with me. So all these gods, are they demigods or are they gods?
I think to some degree we're kind of getting into the weeds on this. I think
we are, and I'm stuck on the word.
An Iron Age culture or an ancient culture that is so dedicated to making sure that they're paying their offerings to crops and water and so on, and they are putting their faith in all of these potential energies to be able to for them to survive throughout these different
All right.
times.
Okay. So, what about people that are idolized nowadays and held up on pedestals? And some people are asked, "Oh, can you help me with this? Can you do this for me? Can you whatever?" How does that not? How is that not? I'm being serious.
Yeah,
I know you are.
How does that not make them gods in a weird sense? God of the pop music, God of this. Like, I'm just saying, like, in other words, if it's something that's they're gonna pray to or depend on or look to. I mean, people look to all kinds of stuff nowadays. Like it's
True.
crazy how they idolize like everyone. Like, you know what I mean? Celebrities, stuff like that. So that bothers me in the sense of like, because the celebrities are a little shady. I always think there's some sort of dark magic there. I mean, I've actually heard some stuff I can't repeat. That doesn't seem right. So I guess what I'm saying is this. So when they say, like, I think the Bible, and I misquote the Bible all the time, about having no gods other than, the one. Was that a way of keeping out the competition? Or was that a way of like directing them in a real sense? I think it was, don't pay attention to any other gods while we tell you about ours. But again,
I mean, if you look back throughout Europe, you have so many of the different cathedrals nowadays, like parts of the Catholic Church. Those are all places where many times the pagans were actually setting up their sites, their worshiping hubs, I guess you could say. Plopping a church on the top of one of these different, ancient temples. Let's borrow the energy and then change the narrative.
Right.
How they went.
So it's a shame that the Catholic Church is to the point where saying the Catholic Church is like saying USA, USA, USA. People just they bristle, right? But it seems like a lot of this goes back to what they know. I mean, there's obviously stuff they have at the Vatican they're never going to show us. They just seem like they're deeply rooted. And so my thing with the Catholic Church is, were they just first at being like really good at like getting their word and getting power, or did it really have to do with more strength in their belief, like more what's the word I'm looking for? Like these other gods were specific, whereas the Catholic Church said to you, it's just this God, this is the whole story, and just follow this. So was it just because they got the word out more and it was just so much bigger, or what was the whole? Because I'm trying to figure out what the appeal was way back that made everybody go.
Wasn't it pushed
by
and
who?
mandated?
Yeah, there were motives. There were motives. And I feel also with a lot of the pagan stuff, you had a lot of the female, the females were almost equal, and they changed that. They tried to take that spotlight down, or shift it into something that they felt that they could work with that would suit them. You're on mute.
Yeah, Sarah. Catholic Church was backed by the monarchs. She is totally correct.
We don't look. Yeah. Every story I've ever heard was a female was the one that caused it. That's literally that's how the Catholic Church went. Now, I feel like the Catholic Church, however, there are good intentions in the sense of like I miss the neighborhood going to church together. That whole community vibe of it, like. And sometimes I say to myself, I believe in all this stuff, but the idea of one boat carrying two of every animal blows my mind. I can't get past that one story. It just kills me. I'm like, can't be, right? Just because that's how my mind works. But like, it's a shame we can't talk about the Catholic Church like you want to, because everybody it's like weird, man. The minute they hear it, it's like a weird pain in their ears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if I was the Catholic Church, if I opened the Catholic Church, I think the first thing I'd do is I'd make a commercial. And I'd be like, hey, I don't know, Father Mike, come down to our church. We're not going to touch your kids. We promise not to touch your kids. Come down. I think, like, that actually needs to be addressed. And I'm not. That's a joke, but I'm not joking when I say
Right.
that's been going on for so long, and that's been so seedy that there's no trust in them. And honestly,
No.
you see a Catholic priest to somebody, and then immediately they think, oh, he plays with kids. And I wish I was joking, but that's the thing.
Right.
Italians greasy. I own that. We get greasy. But like that's what they say about the Catholic Church. So how has the change in what you're allowed to talk about? Because I know like Buddy's thing, they can't put up any Nazi regalia that they may have, which is like a bit of history. And it's like their uniforms were made specifically to like for fear. So it's like the study of that is interesting, but you can't even put up a small display because it gets attacked.
And that's ridiculous because history is made to be studied so you do not repeat the mistakes.
And yeah, they don't want us to know that females were equal. That was the whole goal. We tried so hard, I think. We tried so hard for so many years, but it just broke through. You gotta go with that, Tori, like the whole like they muckied everything up so we can't really talk about like what's going on or what it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even if you look at the likes of Mary Magdalene, you know, was she someone that was a prophet? Was she somebody that was just a street person, you know, who just happened to, you know, you have these things that are just so they kind of did a hit job on her as a way of pushing her out, and you don't have anything about her what was it?
Her accomplishments, her actual
accomplishments, and also her writings.
Yes. So see what Sarah just said about it was made for the peasants. That's what we all think the Bible is now, right? It was just a guide to make people act nice, which a lot of it may be. But then the idea that we don't believe any of the stories blows my mind. Because I'm one of those people, I'm never half in or half out. I'm always like, yeah, I believe in some of it, but I'm not going to buy all of it because why would you? But how are some of the stories not true? Like, how can you say all the stories are not true, right? And was it a book to help? There were two different books within that. Like this, there's actually parts of it they said they never released.
Yeah.
They found Mary Magdalene's gospel, and that was never put in. You know, so you do have that kind of going for it, and that was found in near some of the churches that we actually went to in Egypt on some of the copper scrolls. So
you realize that like the issue with her, my humblest. I speak for the dumb, by the way, Tori. I represent the dumb, so I speak for them. I feel like that she was either going to be the really bad word or a virgin. Like they didn't figure out how to like pitch her, and they couldn't say, oh, she had a baby with Joseph and now it's Jesus. So they had to be like there was an immaculate conception. And it's just like there's just moments of when I read stuff that I feel like I'm being sold. That's the problem with the Catholic Church. They don't just give me stuff and let me digest it. They give it to me with like a feeling like I'm gonna have a used car and a toaster on my way home. You know what I mean?
But you also have something like that with the likes of Isis and Osiris with the birth of Horus. So you do have it throughout different cultures.
Just like that's the guy that's just like Jesus, right? Horus is like there's so many things that are like the same many disciples, or there's like all these, right? That's the comparison. So see, that's part of the stuff that I do study. So that's why I get confused because everything seems kind of the same, but
it does. They overlap. I feel with the same energy and different name, different period of when it was discussed or rediscussed, rehashed.
So when you channel people,
how
do you know? Like in other words, now that we've established there's many pantheons of gods, how do you like? Did you pick her? Was that something you picked? Like, can sin just pick a god? Like, I'm being serious when I say that. Like, if you want to connect with God,
feel that what they'll do is they'll start to show up and they'll start to make their presence known. So you start to feel their energy signature. You'll start to see a lot of little connections, you know, that tie. I was just working with one of my students who is who's starting to work with SECMA, and all of a sudden she's now seeing a lot of stuff having to do with big cats, and there's just a lot they make their presence known, basically.
Also by dreams.
Absolutely, dreams, automatic writing. I think is a great way of doing it. I get a lot of information that way when I do the automatic writing.
So my thing is showers. When I'm in water, if I get out of water, I've had very weird events. And I could actually identify the one person slash God or angel or whatever you want to call it that's always been somewhat present. Like I think I've seen him. I pretty much am sure I've spoken to him. I don't tell Buddy this stuff because why tell Buddy the good stuff? And the thing with me is I like to host, so I don't really tell people a lot of stuff because if I give my version of stuff, it's like I might think I'm jaded, so I just try to stay neutral. But I've had the same sort of archangel type thing where he's been very just it's strange, like dreams. Like I said, out of the shower, it's like out of the shower, man. The water, it's where I used to write songs and stuff like that. It's like where I came up with everything, like band music stuff. Like I just go in a shower and I can just hash something out because there's just something about it. But like, so for someone like me that we may think that there's a certain someone that's been in contact with us once or twice, maybe 3 times, I block that stuff out. I try to pretend it didn't happen. That's how I deal with things. That's classic guy stuff. I'm going to push it down until I take a heart attack. So my point is, at what point do you really start to think like, maybe I need to look into this? Like maybe this person or this, because if you can talk to different deities, which I don't think there's anything better in the world I could think of to do. I would love to be able to speak to different gods of different times. Like those are all questions I can think of right now. That'd be great. But like, does a certain one choose you? Do certain things choose you?
I tend to feel so. And I think it also has to do with maybe whatever you are or wherever you're at with your development of things. Maybe they're kind of keeping an eye on you for a while. And then all of a sudden making their presence known when you've actually had different changes or things going on in your life that have opened up new doors. There was a picture of me as an 8-year-old with lion cubs draped across my lap that I found a couple of years ago. I totally forgot about it. I'm like, oh my God, she's actually been with me way longer than I ever had anticipated. So it happens. I tend to feel if you start seeing a lot of just things in social media that pop up over and over again, it's the same type of, how many times have you heard people say, oh, I keep seeing owls, and they look at the different animal totems. You have a lot of animal totems that are also tied to a lot of these different gods or goddesses or entities or ascended masters, so it's not out of the question. I do feel like they tend to find you, and they want to work with you.
Is it
when you're ready
to work through you?
Yes.
Honestly, is it work with you or work through you?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think that they definitely will put a good amount of time and attention into your own personal development. Pretty much since I was walking through all of Egypt, that was one big, actually, those are just 2 big, ginormous downloads.
That's what I'm afraid of.
At all the different temples. I feel that my first trip versus my second trip, it was much, much stronger, much more intense, especially with the channeling stuff. It's almost like the first time the foundation was laid to be able to allow them to download what they needed to download, to be able to kind of tap into those goodies.
So see, you're willing to step into that and explore it more and have it happen to you. Like, it's weird. I'm the guy that took the mushrooms, and he's like, oh, I don't want to be like this anymore. And everyone's else like, you're gonna get worse. And I'm like, no. That's kind of how it gets for me. Sin, I never asked you this. Do you have any attachment to any part of your faith, or any angel, or anybody that you think you have worked with, or looks over you, or spoken with you at
I
all?
have I have been told more than once by a different psychic a couple of times that I have had Michael. Remember I told you about the wrecks I was in? I was told Michael was with me. And I told you I knew somebody was in the car with me on both occasions. And those were years apart. But I know somebody was with me. I just couldn't see him. I knew it was a him.
Yeah.
I thought at first it was my dad. Not in the first one though. He was alive and kicking. But yeah, I think you also have some of us have spirit guides.
Personal, yeah, personal.
Yeah.
Personal, yeah. And I've got a cousin of mine that follows me and kind of, make sure I'm safe.
We also have different guides for lots of different angles or different things that are going on in our life. Like, for example, we have a life architect guide, we have a love guide, we have a spiritual development guide, and they're all kind of coming in and going out according to what you're working on and what you need and what's going on in your life.
All right, but
I think my love guide just kind of went, she ain't listening.
good luck.
And then I finally met Greg. But, for those first 30 plus years, my spirit guide was just like, good Lord, she ain't listening.
I think after 30 years, any spirit guide should be allowed to retire. That's a lot of time putting in with any cause. You know what I'm trying to say? Give them a break too. They're guides too. No, but
I think I went through several. There was just like, no, I can't deal with her. No, I can't. You take her. No.
Tori, the only things I've ever felt like I've contacted or been in connection with, my mom. I know my mom has messed with me on numerous occasions, and I know she has because she's done things that only my mom would do. And then after like 4 coincidences in a row, by the 5th one on the same day of my birthday, I just went to bed. I wrapped it up, called it quits. The other one is, and I don't really speak about it, but I've been face to face with. See, I think we see things the way we want to see them. So if I mention someone in like lore, I'm going to picture them how I pictured him, or her how I pictured her. That's just my image of it.
Mhm.
But it was a weird moment that I had that freaked me out, and I didn't tell anybody about it. Still haven't told anybody. I just keep it myself. But it was bizarre as all heck. It was like almost like it tried to burst into your whole head and body and make you see them for a second to make you understand something. It was like a slap in the face. That's what I felt like. It was like a wake up and then out. And then I went in the room and told the wife exactly what happened, and she's like, "Really?" And I'm thinking to myself, "That's a good question, really," because like I just heard what I said out loud, and it sounds stupid. Like it sounds ridiculous. It sounds made up. That's why I don't ever repeat or go over the story because, but it did happen. So it's like, is that just sometimes me, being, I don't know, crazy, or is
No.
that really?
We all have those moments. We all have those moments. We all have those times when we've had that, and I always feel like energy, even like ghostly energy. It's a snapshot in time. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time, in terms of them appearing to you. And so sometimes when they're trying to give us a sign and we're not listening, sometimes they will get in our face and be like, "Okay, I'm talking to you." And they'll do what they can in order to get the message across. So we've all had, I feel, those moments where there are things that have happened to us that we don't talk about. I know I have some that are going to make me sound bat crap crazy, ready for Butler, which I don't, talk about because people don't understand it. But I do firmly believe it. But I keep that to myself.
See, and it's things like that have changed my outlook on when I listen to people talk about their faith or anything like that. I've become much more open. I mean, I've always been open, but much more open in the sense of like, it's just not fair for me to immediately say I don't believe them. You know what I mean? Like if anything, it taught me that one thing. Like I have to listen to everything and not just be the classic. Like I don't know. Like 20 years ago, I would just dismiss things and move on. Now I actually will digest them, listen to them. You know what I mean? And sometimes I think people are batshit crazy. I think that's just part of the whole paranormal game. And then sometimes they're being sincere. And I feel like Sin, if you notice with guests, you can tell sincerity,
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
or as
Yeah.
opposed to like selling something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's just that different vibe. But so what I've always was fascinated was all right. So the Archangel Michael carried a scale with him, and as the story would go, when he wasn't fighting Satan's army, he would come down to earth and weigh someone's soul. And if it was at least 50-50, good to bad, he would take them up to heaven. Like if they didn't make it into heaven the first time, he would give them a 50-50 shot. As long as they were as good as they were bad, he'd let them in. There's something about that I'm a really big fan of. You know what I mean? Like I just, because like to get judged, that's the scariest thing I can think of. Like I don't want to be judged. I can already think of, I can write things down right now that would keep me out in my book, like out of whatever club they want to say it is. But like, let me ask you this then: you open up portals. Kids open up portals with. I never knew you had to end the Ouija board. That's not in the instructions. Nowhere in the instructions did it tell me you have to go to like end. So like all those years, I could have been just opening up stuff, and who am I to know, right? So it's like when you get into paranormal, and you get on this side, you go to Egypt, you're around all this energy, you start having things happen to you. You've had many things that you've dealt with. You're not worried that you're just eventually going to let the negative that's too big a wave come through?
I view it as when I do my work, I have a very, I'm going to say, robust team that includes archangels anchoring the space when I'm working. It includes a gatekeeper team, as well as a team of individuals who are helping me with my work.
Are these real people we're speaking of, or
Some
deities?
Some
Okay.
some ascended masters, some deities, some I feel individuals who are more modern that have passed on, that whether it be had some sort of interest in working with spirituality while they were alive. I mean, think of all the musicians that have passed on in terms of, or even all the musicians that have gotten songs out of nowhere.
Well, when you said Aleister Crowley, I thought Jimmy Page. I thought local. That's immediately what I thought when you said that, because Jimmy Page bought that house, right? And then he did rituals or whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you how Led Zeppelin came up with their songs. They stole them. They basically took a bunch of blues riffs and blues songs and stuff like that, and they just made it into rock and roll. I can't blame them. They were awesome, but that's where they got their songs. Sin, question. Are you ready?
I'm blank right now, Mike. I apologize.
I got a million of them. So
okay.
My point about, so you're an assembling. Now, no offense to this. I'm just trying to give a dumb guy perspective. These are things that are not in your head, but in your head. In other words, there's nobody physically in the room that has a license, right? All these things that help you.
I'm not following you.
All the people you set up, the angels, this there, they don't have licenses, right? They're like.
No, I also think that here's the other thing. Of all of the different vibrations, love is the highest vibration. So if you're focusing on working with the vibration of love, and I'm not saying airy fairy, okay? I'm saying I know that with really dark cases, when you call in the likes of Mother Mary, the dark is terrified of her. You know, so you work with allies who are that are going to be effective and who are here to try and help you and want to see you be able to help other people.
So it's just not positive energy from before. It's positive energy that people now can carry.
I think so.
So I mean, like you surround yourself with people that are. If you're going to do a séance, you don't want that one guy walking around, right? Because then
Right.
No,
the lioness
no.
will get very angry and
Oh
you'll
yeah. I
see
mean,
the face.
she got really pissed, and there were people that were really surprised, and I know I scared the crap out of that guard. So
Well, if your face changed, yeah, you scared him. Yeah,
yeah,
that was
there,
scaring
there
me.
may have been a roar too. So
See, that's you left that out. You left that part out. If there's a roar, we got a totally different scene on our hands. Then if there's a face change and a roar,
The roar would
that's cause for
terrify
alarm.
me.
Yes.
That would terrify me.
Yes.
yeah, he backed up and was just shutting the door real fast.
I mean, because when you think of a roar, or I don't know, Mike, I think of lower level, and I think of devils and demons and any kind of that kind of thing. Growl.
That's a growl. All right, growl.
And I've definitely experienced that. You know, I've sat in a place and have had recordings where we've had some really gnarly growls. So I understand where you're coming from on that, especially with the paranormal side. Yes, I understand that.
I don't.
But
I don't. So see, a roar to me is still a roar. It's just like a lion roar. But a growl can be many things. And everybody we've had on the show that's ever done like a really deep dig. Why did you say dig deep? Deep dig. A deep dig, Mike. A deep dig. Anybody that's going really deep, they always hear growls. But they also hear hissing. So see, that's where that whole weird like hell is below us thing comes in, because on a lot of digs, I've heard people talk about like, all right, so that TV show that everyone watched on Netflix that I didn't really watch, the ranch thing, the heat thing was trying to show that there was something below it, maybe like a serpent. That's what the whole thing was. And then cut to Barry Fitzgerald, and he's like, it's like 1 a.m. in Ireland, but he comes on to do a show with me and Buddy, which I don't know why, but I digress. And he's telling us about this big dig he did, and he wouldn't tell us what bothered him. And the thing that stuck with me is he used the term, it changed my whole paradigm on life. And that was such a big Scrabble word that I was like, I can't let that go. I got to figure out like what this is. So at the end, when I asked him, was it serpentine in nature? He's like, yes. So have you heard anything about the fact that there's below us, there's always been growls or like a hissing? Have you ever been on anything like that? Heard of anything like that? You say no, that's fine. I'm just asking if you had.
I mean, I know that so many of the different places, well, the cultures, even in Egyptian, there's deities that are snakes, and Sekhmet's tied to snakes to some degree too, the cobra.
Yeah. Basically, in the world of black and white, you're like red. You're seeing a bunch of different gods, different times, different vibrations. In other words, if you do believe in vibrations like I do, not the Beach Boys, but like the whole idea that different times are happening at the same time, and that we all give off vibrations, then there could have been different gods.
There could have,
because they could have been slightly different times where they all had their say, right?
Yeah,
maybe. But I guess what I'm saying is, I always get the feeling that when you go down, it gets meaner. Does that make sense?
That's what we're taught to believe too.
Like oddly enough, like it's a good way to let you know, not to explore. I'm gonna throw a couple at you, Tori, so they're gonna be a little confusing. What do you think of that? And then what do you think of the idea that the UFO phenomenon could be completely, especially in Egypt, could be tied in with that also? Because the UFO people will tell you, oh, we're in the hieroglyphics. You know, we made it. It's like we made it in like a Tupac song. He shouted us out. We're there in the hieroglyphics. See, UFOs are always
and I've asked my friend, the Egyptologist guy, the same questions, and he definitely feels like there is a connection. I mean, he feels that the chamber in the upper pyramid is actually an ascension chamber, not a burial chamber. Here's the interesting part. Sekhmet is tied to the star Sirius. Also, I'm going to Sedona next week.
Nice.
So we're going to be, looking at some of the different portals and also the skies as well. So, I do feel there's a connection there. It's just way too coincidental, I feel.
It's
You know?
all coincidental. It's all got gods under the same sort of names and backstories. It all talks about ascension. It all talks about how you don't want to go below wherever the bad is. It all seems like it's good versus bad. I know that's very generic, but it seems like that's what we're dealing with. I mean, from doing these shows, like show after show, don't you get a feeling like that's kind of the basic theme that like there's a bunch of people coming from different camps, but you're kind of hearing the same information just with different names and places.
Right.
Like so then Tori, how do you wade through that? In other words, it's almost I don't want to say like how do you know the real gods from the non-real gods? I guess it's all perspective, but like for someone, how do you like I guess how do you wade through that? Does it just depend on where you are? Like if you're in Egypt, you're gonna be into the whole mythology that's there, right? Or is it
Yeah.
Or is it
No,
just
sorry.
like go ahead, is it like pot's luck? You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to figure it all out. Like why certain areas Egyptian gods come in. Why? Because it's in Egypt, dummy. Like in my head, I'm thinking that. That's what I'm thinking. But maybe you know more.
That I'm not sure. I mean, I know I also do hypnosis. I do past life regression, and I can certainly tell you that when people are going under for past life regression, the more detail that they're giving, the likelihood is that they are definitely under and are experiencing things and describing things. But with that being said, I kind of feel like the attention that the Egyptian stuff gets, I feel like there's just so much that's repetitive in all the other cultures. I know you mentioned how the underworld is considered the deep dark, but one of the things that just popped into my head was, with the Mayan culture, they had these in the pyramids. They had the almost like the fields of Mercury, to kind of show what the river would have looked like. And I just saw something today where they said that there was something very similar to that in the Chinese culture with those large Chinese statues that particular emperor had buried with him.
The warriors.
Yeah. And that there was like almost like a field of Mercury that they found as well. So it's just interesting in terms of how there's just so much that's just so similar. I tend to feel though that with the fact that all of these different images have some type of resemblance to each other, I feel like there's something bigger that's further beyond that or before that. I don't know if it's Anunnaki. I don't know if it's something else, but I do feel like there's something that it's coming from.
Yeah, I feel like there could have been civilizations before us. There's a lot of things like with history that it gets kind of like you know what? Just the fact that it's a Roman calendar, Catholic count, the calendar, the days of the week, the game's a little skewed by them.
Yeah.
So they set up that stuff. Egypt was first. Like that's what everyone always says, right? The cradle of civilization, right?
Yeah.
But yet it was the Catholics that literally took control of the months and the days and the years.
They changed it to the Julian calendar, I believe, or something like that.
They started time in my book. Like they have it predated to where it's 0. Right? And then they
that was a convenient number for them in terms of the Catholic Church.
What's that?
I said I think that was just a convenient number that they kind of came up with.
But one year they decided to go, let's start with this is year 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's weird. Like that it really is that like all of a sudden this was year 1 and we're starting from here. And then everything that happened before, well, that's BC. Put a negative. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Like when I was a little kid learning that fact that we're negative, it's like, oh, how's that time? Like, what are you talking about? Like you're starting at 0, but you're trying to tell me there's negative. Anyways, so the whole thing is confusing. Again, if I was a Catholic church, I think I would just come on and say, look, we're not going to touch the kids. Maybe people would come back because it was just good for communal reasons, like getting together, and the energy that would come from a church when it was positive was always like a good feeling. Like as a little kid, you would leave church feeling good, even though you hated standing, sitting, kneeling, standing, sitting, kneeling. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing. No one liked it as a kid. No, you just didn't. But you felt better when you left, and I think that was more of the vibrations and of the energy. So, like, I guess the next thing with you would be, so when you're dealing with all these different energies, do you ever get names that aren't like written down in history? Do you ever like come face to face with something that's maybe claims it existed that we don't have on record?
I will definitely get names, and I will go back and I will do research. I've definitely gotten some writings in terms of descriptions of just stuff that was way before, but not specifically names. More like a description is the best way to describe it of what they said was going on, or what they were focusing on.
Because Sin, for everything that was written down, there's a lot of stuff that's not written down. For every
there's more that's not written down.
So for every god for every god that's been documented, we're missing a few. Like I'm being serious. Like if you had, this is a silly situation, but if you had something come upon you that was a god of something that you've never heard of, then what? Like, because no, I'm being serious. Because then you can't like go back and be like, oh, it's this one, and this is what that means. Like, what if you get hit with something that you don't know what the heck it is, what the hell it is, if it is what it says? That's what scares me. It's the unknown ones stepping through. Think
about censorship. I mean, don't you think that has happened since the dawn of time?
Has to.
You know, so that I just found out yesterday that a lot of the book of Ezekiel was taken out and not included in the Bible that we have. Why?
So
there's some things in that they don't want us to talk about.
So Tori, that's my point. So there's obvious things that have happened, or there's obvious things we still don't know about, right? That are there. So you're letting something come into your body to the point where your face changes and you growl. So like that's scary to me because what if something else jumps in for that day and Tori's trying to Tori's trying to like fly off the pyramid. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I won't be flying off the pyramid.
So hopefully she's protected.
Yeah. Well, what's protection? Because here's my thing: protection. Okay, protection against what? Because to fight off like my son, I could use like a cardboard shield. To fight off like Buddy, it's going to be made of metal. See what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't know what type of protection that I might need until I face something that I need to protect myself against.
Well, Tori, before you go anywhere or do anything, don't you put a wall of protection, white light, you go into a meditative state, you psych yourself up, whatever. Yeah. But you get prepared for everything, don't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I went, I had all sorts of medals, medallions, you name it, as well as bubbling up multiple bubbles. In order to be prepared, because of the fact that I might be a more interesting target to something that might be kind of looking or going, oh, what can she do? Let's go fuck with her.
And you didn't want to be blindsided.
Exactly. So I did a lot with that in terms of really focusing on that.
But prepared for anything.
Yeah,
is a very vague term. That's a vague term. Like prepared for, because hear me out. You're prepared for anything.
Right.
Anything is kind of not really anything. It's anything that you kind of know of.
Like kind of what I meant was
you don't know. That's what I'm scared about for Tori. That's like why I worry about when people let things like that come into their body, because you're prepared. You got all these things in place. How positive are you that that's strong enough to prevent anything?
I think it has to do with the with the relationship of your team.
Okay. All right.
You know, because vibration wise, I'm working with stuff that's pretty high to be on my team for protection.
And that's the thing right there. She's talking about high vibration, keeping herself highly, at a high vibration. It's she's staying away from all the low negativity stuff.
I know that, and I always worry about people anyways because I still think to myself,
Well, because
you
a
can
lot of
protect
people
yourself
go
against
in.
stuff, yeah, but
Yeah.
it still might come through. In
Yeah.
other words, you could be prepared as you want to be, but then the next day you meet that big bully, and you're like, hey, now what do I do? Like, that's why I
Yeah.
get worried. And then, like, or you're prepared, so you've got this whole thing going on. Think about the people that are completely unprepared. All the
I
ones we
agree.
know, they just walk in, let stuff soak in, and it's like, now what? Like, seriously, now what? Because it's like, what did you just let in? Like, what's gonna happen next? Like, what vibrations? Sorry. So, how important is it to say like some sort of "don't follow me home" speech? Like, how important is it to do that stuff and be meticulous?
Oh yeah. I have a very strict, I guess you could say, pattern of preparation pattern. And it's funny because with the table tipping, I've had some people who have come to table and then all of a sudden say, oh, I can do this, and have tried it, and it either hasn't worked or they've brought in something that they weren't expecting. And it's because they are, I feel, either not coming from a place that's sincere, and they're not doing their dedication, and they're not doing their work, and they're not preparing themselves. Also, I'm not going to put myself into a purposeful negative situation. That's why that's why I don't like to do any sort of types of table tipping at haunted places. With negative haunts, I should say.
Yeah.
But
So don't let the ego in, basically. In other words, like
yeah.
you can't, like, it can't be about you.
Oh
All
God,
right,
no.
it's a lot of people that are mediums that it's about them.
Ugh,
The whole thing's
yes.
about them and what they can do.
Yeah.
And it drives me insane because that's where people get hurt.
That's what I thought. Because you're letting the ego in.
Yes.
Sit down and just be like, I could do that.
I've had people do that. I've had because I used to, my business model was I'd be working at different shops throughout Rhode Island and Massachusetts and in Connecticut. And I had a couple people basically had me in for a few times. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I'm going to do it myself. Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
I would be more of no, I don't want to try that. Like that's the ones I think I would be more scared of. Like the people that say, "Oh, I can do that." It's just like, yeah, go ahead. There's nothing good's gonna happen when you say that. When you say something like that, I always say something like that at any position in life.
Here's
I
the
can do
thing.
that.
I really focus with the table tipping stuff and the mediumship. I really focus at coming at it from a place that's healing and helping in the brightest and the whitest of light. And I focus on that as part of the programming when I'm setting everything up and I'm preparing.
And you've been building this for years and years and years.
Yes.
Perfecting the way you do this.
Yeah.
And some people just come in, bam, thinking they know everything and they know nothing.
Mm-hmm. And it's scary because then you have people saying, oh my God, I don't know how to get rid of XYZ. Can you help me?
Yeah.
It's so the issue with mediums, being a medium, the issue with that always is, and I, again, speaking for the dumb, we see the whole trickery of it. The reading of people, the reading of lead on words, lead on sentences. Like, in other words, I've seen some that are amazing, and I've seen others that
are charlatans.
Yeah, I can tell just by the questions they're asking. They want to see an emotion, they want to see a reaction, and then they just have to pull on that. And it's like they're playing the strings of you, and you just keep Oh wow, he talked right about me. She knew everything about me, and it's like, did you tell
Right.
her everything about you, or did she know everything about you? But then there's some that are like connecting on things. There's just different levels. It's not to be played around with. I think is what I'm trying to get at, right? Like you don't.
No, I agree. And the mediumship didn't start when I started doing the tarot readings. My grandmother started training me tarot age 12.
Well,
Um, so basically, I found that this intuitive sense, especially, opened up as I was really honing my craft and honing my focus in terms of how I wanted to use this, how I honor what I do, because I treat it as very sacred and at coming from a very special place.
so it's again comes down to the person's intent, the person's vibe, if you want to use that word. I'll use it. Sometimes you find what you're looking for. If you go in with a positive mind and you're trying for positive, you find positive, right? You go in with that reckless, wild mind, you might end up with something reckless or wild.
And if you go in not knowing what the hell you're doing, there is no telling what's going to happen.
It's the Wild West sometimes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an issue going with Sarah Paranormal, and she claims that like if you're a medium, you can't be an asshole. Like you can't use that. Like how can you be like? Where's the empathy of like the person you're dealing with? And I always tell her, no, I've seen people that have medium type skills handle people in two separate bed manners. Like some are
Yeah.
very nice, positive, and then some tell them a bunch of facts of what happened to them, and they just it's like, who's next? So I've seen good and bad mediums, but I still believe that they both have something that they can do. I just think that some people, man, they just decide. The question to her problem is she's always asking like, what? Well, if you have that ability, why would you do that? If you know like they're because some people don't care. Like there's a shut off. I just think there's not an. It's not
Yeah.
a positive light.
Yeah. I mean, people will ask me questions that they shouldn't be asking me. And it always comes back to, is it healing and helping? And there are times when I'm literally asking that to the client about that question. Is that question really healing and helping? And they're like, no. Oh, okay, then.
I just need to know. I just need to know if she was cheating on me. Can you just let me know this info? And it's like, why do you want to know that right now? How's that going to help you? What's it going to do to you? Like, what do you really want to know? It's one of those things. Sometimes it's like, I wonder what your client must ask of you. Like, especially when it's a loved one. That's why I hate room readings for that one sense, because sometimes I feel like they just throw a letter out there or a name, and they just start to pull it in. Somebody jumps on the hook, and it's just like, oh crap! Like it's weird. But so, lastly, let's end with this. What advice would you give to someone who's like this paranormal enthusiast that wants to go out to these haunted places, wants to somehow make a connection with these different spirits, these different energies, and they just go in thinking, hey, it's going to be great. It's all going to be positive.
If they're going in, hey ho, let's go, that's a problem. Also, never going alone. Also, do your homework. Know what you're going into. And also, if you have a strong interest in working and fine tuning your mediumship skills, find somebody that you vibe with that can really help guide you. I mean, I teach mediumship. I teach a lot of one-on-one spiritual coaching. And the first thing we always focus on is protection and how people can really work with that to keep them safe, and especially as they're opening up. And I will push them in terms of, working on new skills, but it's coming from a place where they kind of have to go about, learning who their guides are, really focusing on their protection, learning in terms of what type of skill they have, and then figuring out, okay, how can we pull that out to utilize that skill, But you also have to use your common sense.
Yeah.
If you go looking for trouble, you're going to find trouble.
Yep. In any walk of life, just the stakes are a little higher sometimes with this paranormal side of things. Like just
The unknown. Yeah.
Sin, what would you like to say to wrap up?
Tori, I have enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
You've been awesome. You've been awesome. All my books, you guys can find them on Amazon. Go check them out. Sin Schrader Hill author. If you're needing to talk to me or send me stories, Sin Schrader Hill author at gmail.com. You can find me at elkvalleyparanormal.com and on Facebook, Sin Schrader Hill author. I've got a big something coming up in October. October 21st is going to be the Tennessee Haunts and Legends Expo. 75 vendors in Nashville. It's put on by The Unseen Paranormal, which is Eric Freeman Sims, RPG Paranormal, which investigations, that's Regina, and then we got Medics for Paranormal, which is Lee. So they got together, formed this expo. Last year it was in Lebanon. This year it's in Nashville. It's going to be bigger. Most of the proceeds go to benefit Haunted Place, a haunted historic site, and the other part goes to animals. So come out and see us. You can get tickets online or at the door, $10.
Yeah, but where am I going to sleep?
We got a spare bedroom.
All right. See, if you said that, you started off with that, I'd be writing all the things down. Tori, thank you for being the guest tonight. Is there anything you'd like to promote or any websites or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, first of all, AvalonEnchanted.com will give people an idea of what I offer. If people are interested in any of the one-on-one coaching or any of the events, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Visit us in Wickford, 24 Brown Street in Wickford, Rhode Island. Since it is a small studio, we are open kind of on weekends. And then finally, we have in October Wickford Wicked Week, which is actually 3 weeks of all sorts of different events, from tea and tarot to historical tours to dancing witches parades to spooky sip and strolls and all sorts of stuff.
Catch the grease drunk Red Sox fan. Do you play that game? They should.
No.
At the Wicked Wickfords. Wicked Wickfords guy. Oh God. God, get the car. We're going. That's Wicked Wickfords.
Wicked
right?
Wickford. Yeah.
Wicked Wickfords guy. All right.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Check that out. Yeah, it's going to be good. Actually, my business partner and I were placed on the Wicked Wickford week. I guess you could say team to work on it. So it's going to definitely be good. We're trying to put in a small psychic fair during that time as well. So there's going to be other events coming up. So check it out. I love WickfordVillage.com.
The Wicked Wickford week. There's got to be a better word for a group of people with a W. There's got to be a word. You got to come up with a word that describes a group of people that starts with a W. Because then you can be the Wicked Wickford weekend or week, whatever. It's Warriors or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's everything. There's everything from like Oktoberfest to, good God, we're doing an ancestral table tipping. There's all sorts of stuff. It's endless. It's almost the entire month. But yeah, I agree with you. It needs to be renamed.
Odd term, table tipping.
Yeah.
For like, if you don't know what it means, for someone like me, when I first heard table tipping,
oh yeah,
it reminds me of drinking. Like
it used to be called table turning.
There you go. Because tipping a table, I'm just thinking we're drinking. Let's tip the table. But turning it, that'd be something different. I would like to thank you so much for being on, Tori. Sin, thank you for being here. Thank you to Buddy for being extremely inebriated while he was camping. I mean, he deserves it. He's camping. I mean, what are you going to do? Like I said, what else are you going to do? Stare at the sun? You're going to sit there and drink beers. We know how it goes. Fishing is a code word for drinking. For Tori McNally, for Sin Trader Hill author, it is me, Michael B. King, Mike L. This was legit. Paranormal brought to you by legit podcast.com. Tomorrow night we have Compass of Curiosities at 9:05 p.m. with Russ Stiver. I will be leaving now to go deal with 11 truly difficult men that I know throughout my life in what's called a fantasy football draft, where some people just, my issue is, Tori, stupidity. Extreme stupidity drives me nuts. I don't mind dumb guys. I get along with them. But someone that's just really stupid, and it's stupid from ignorance, can't take it. Sorry. Go Giants, and